Hi, welcome to Miss Richardson's U.S. History 5-Minute Lectures. This information will be U.S. History Notes 1.1, an Introduction to the Progressive Era. It's an overview of what we'll be looking at in this unit, particularly in our first section on the study guide. Everything in this set of notes will be discussed later in more depth. Today I want to get you familiar with some of the terms that we'll be using regularly throughout the unit and with the time period. Now remember, you control the lecture. Pause the video if you need, write down any questions you have and bring them to me in class, rewatch it as often as you need, and of course, use your study guide to help you take your notes. So let's get started. The Progressive Era is called the Progressive Era because it's a time period where many different groups were attempting to help the country and society progress. They wanted to move forward and make life better. Some of their ideas worked really well, and, well, we still use those today. Some not so much. But of all of the people who worked to change things were known as progressives. Whether or not they were successful, they were trying to fix the problems they saw in the world that they lived in. Now you may be wondering, why were there all these problems? That's an excellent question. Let me tell you about that. The time period before the Progressive Era was known as the Gilded Age. Gilded means something looks gold, but it really isn't. Basically, it looks good from the outside, but on the inside, it's rotten or bad. That really explains the earlier time period before the Progressive Era. America looked wealthy and successful, but in reality, many Americans were poor and mistreated. So there were a lot of issues in the U.S. following the Civil War and Reconstruction. Those are the periods before the Gilded Age. Many of the problems had existed before, but were really exploding in the Gilded Age. They got much bigger. Industrialization led to many of these problems. Industrialization is the buildup of industry, essentially relying on industry rather than farming for money. So that's what the country started to do. More and more people began working in big business and factories, leading to more and more problems with working conditions, child labor, unfair wages, and those sorts of issues. Those were some of the issues in the Gilded Age that the progressives wanted to address. Because these factories needed workers, they became central locations people moved to. This created larger and larger cities, a phenomenon known as urbanization. You should actually know this term from your geography class, but just in case you don't remember, it's the growth of urban areas or cities. So as more and more people moved to cities, which were not planned out, there were more issues and problems. Lack of housing, unsanitary conditions, not enough services, these were all problems associated with rapid urbanization. Even today, those same issues are associated with rapid urbanization and LEDCs. Add to that all the immigrants and minorities coming to the cities and the factories. Freed slaves who wanted new lives, immigrants from Europe and Asia who wanted a better life, and heard stories about how many high-paying jobs there were in America. All of them moved to the U.S. and competed for jobs. This led to racial tension and a lot of prejudice. You can see the overpopulation and how this could increase tensions. There even becomes a new school of thought created during the time period called social Darwinism. Social Darwinism took the idea of Darwin and survival of the fittest and applied it to people in society. Generally accepted by the wealthy, the idea was that the poor people were poor because they were not as fit or as good as wealthy people. Wealthy people were inherently better than the poor, which is why they were wealthy. That's what the idea said. This is something people believed during the Gilded Age and Progressive Era. So you can tell there are some serious problems that need faced during the Gilded Age. The progressives in the Progressive Era are going to try to fix these problems. As we move through the 5-minute lectures, you'll get more detail on the problems America was facing and on the attempts to fix the problems. So this is the end of your US Notes 1.1. I hope you learned something, and I will see you in class.